There are major expenses you have to account for when you're looking at underwriting a property or when you're managing a property. The big expenses are going to be your insurance, your taxes, right? Now your taxes and your insurance are somewhat variables, but they're more fixed on a yearly basis and they can vary from year to year. But the stuff that you really have to pay attention to that really helps determine the profitability of the property is going to be your day-to-day expenses, your maintenance expenses, your management expenses, your vacancy rates, because a vacant unit costs you money, right? Your turnover expenses, and when a tenant moves out and you bring a new tenant in, what does it cost you to get that unit ready to put a new tenant in, right? Some tenants destroy the fucking place. Others take really good care of it. So when we underwrite putting new tenants in there, or when property management underwrites putting a tenant in there, they look at what their history is. Do they have good credit? Are they, reliable as far as that goes? Do they have any criminal history? Do they have any evictions? Those are all things that play a role in whether we decide to put a tenant into a property or not. Tenants that don't have any of that stuff on their background generally are going to be a lot more reliable and a better tenant. Therefore, they're going to take better care of the unit or the property itself. And so your turnover costs are going to be a lot less. So the goal is to minimize your expenses and increase your income so that you have more profit per unit. And so all those variable expenses, your turnover, your vacancy rates, your maintenance expenses, all that stuff, and your taxes and your insurance, et cetera, all come into play on a monthly basis that helps determine what your profitability are. But your maintenance expenses and your turnover expenses are two big ones you really have to pay attention to and focus on. For us, our business model with our multifamily specifically is all value add. So what does a value add mean? Basically, it means that we want to be able to buy the property, come in, and through renovations, updating the units, increasing curb appeal, we want to be able to drive rents up, which is going to increase our profitability, right? You increase your profitability, it increases the value of that property as a whole, right? So for on average, every dollar you can increase your net operating income, increases the value of that property between $18 and $20, right? So you can really increase the value of a property by raising your net operating income. There are always key things that you can do to a unit or to the property as a whole that allows you to charge higher rents or get closer to what market average rents are, right? So typically when we identify a property, we're looking for properties that have below market rents. Their units are typically outdated and the management hasn't been as efficient as they should be in managing that property, raising rents on average to keep up with what market demands, so on and so forth. So we like to identify properties that kind of have a mix of all that. So the day one, we can come in and we start implementing our business plan. And that typically includes renovating the units, updating things like countertops, kitchen cabinets, flooring is a big one, bathrooms, appliances, so that then we can take the under market rents and raise them to what are close to what market average is. You never want to be the highest on the market, but you never want to be the lowest. You kind of want to be around that 90% of what market rates are. By doing that, we then rent the units back up, increases the valuation of the property because we're getting higher rents, which means we're profiting more money per unit, which adds to the bottom line, increases the value of the property. Once we're able to do that, take your profit, move on to the next. Or if rates are good, you can refinance out of it at the new valuation, pull out some of your equity that you've forced into that property, and then keep operating that property, managing it over time, raising rents on a yearly basis to keep up with what the market's doing. Now you have a stable property that's profiting for you, that's at where it should be valuation-wise, with rents that are close to what market average is, and you have a good stable property. So that's typically our business model, and those are the types of properties that we identify, and those are the types of things that we do to those properties to force that value up. So reducing expenses is a huge point. Huge focus for us as a firm, for our property management company that we also own that manages all of our properties. We want to be able to reduce expenses, increase profits, right? Increase rents, which increases your profits. A lot of what we do to reduce those unexpected expenses is typically with a lot of our properties and units we'll do quarterly walkthroughs so that we're getting eyes on that property, seeing how it's being taken care of, seeing what needs to be fixed or replaced, fixing it and being proactive about it. Now, you're still never going to completely eliminate unexpected expenses. Things pop up, furnaces, hot water tanks, refrigerators, appliances, stoves, stuff like that, roofs. But by making sure you're doing those consistent quarterly walkthroughs, you're getting eyes on every property, you're communicating with your tenants, it helps to reduce those expenses. And if something does pop up that needs to be fixed, you do it right the first time instead of trying to patchwork it just to kick the can down the road a little bit, because ultimately that's going to cost you more money, because not only did you waste time just trying to patchwork it, but eventually you're going to have to go in and spend all the money and do the full repair anyways. So do it right the first time, eliminate it happening down the road, and make sure you're doing consistent quarterly walkthroughs. Getting eyes on properties, on units, helps to eliminate those unnecessary or unexpected high expenses, which helps to drive down those costs. So technology is huge for us. All of our operations utilizing some form of technology, whether it's our investor portal, our accounting, our property management, our billing software, whatever, our communication, even internal office communication. Utilizing the right technology really helps to increase communication, eliminate any sort of issues, things that are missed, balls being dropped. Granted, you can never eliminate that completely, but even with our tenants, they have their own portal, they sign in, they pay their rent through, they communicate with us through, they send in maintenance tickets on. That helps to, it reduces your workload, meaning you don't need as many people employed, right? So you can reduce your workforce and operate more efficiently, but also it allows you to track communication, right? So if something gets missed, you can go back and see, well, it shouldn't have been missed. Where was the ball dropped and why was it dropped, and make sure that it doesn't happen again in the future, because there's a paper trail, electronic paper trail to everything. Not just property management, but our investors, they have their own investor portal that they can log into. They can see all their commitments that they've done. They can see every distribution they've gotten. They can see the performance of the property from the day that they started till current day. The technology for us is huge in making sure that we streamline our operations, which helps drive our costs down because we don't have excess workforce. We're not wasting money on doing things multiple times. We're not having multiple people do the same thing, and we're able to communicate with tenants a lot better and a lot cleaner and a lot quicker, which allows us to collect rent faster and have a lower delinquency rate. So KPIs for us are extremely important, both from the investor side with lead generation and conversion to investors, and for every dollar we spend in marketing, we get X dollars in investment, to the property side. So property side KPIs that we really track and we follow is vacancy rate. Obviously we want a very, very low vacancy rate. We want to track, and we do track, the net operating income per unit, so that we know what each specific unit, not specific house or property, but each specific unit itself makes us on a monthly basis, net, after all expenses, including mortgage, your taxes, your insurance, your maintenance reserves, everything. Those, and then the other things that we track are turnover time. How long does it take to go from a tenant moving out to that property being ready to have a new tenant move in? And then also, how long does it take for us to fill a unit, from listing it for rent to actually getting a signed lease on that and a tenant moving in where we're starting to cash flow. Those are the big KPIs that we track and we follow. Obviously, we want a low vacancy rate, we want a high net operating income per unit dollar amount, and we want low turnover time from the time a tenant moves out to the time the unit's ready for it to be moved back into, as well as a low fill time, meaning from the time that you market that property to the time that you have a signed lease. So decisions are made solely based off the KPIs that we track, right? The KPIs are going to tell you everything you need to know. Every change that you make, you monitor it, you follow it for a certain period of time, and you look back at where you started to where you're at currently. And if you're seeing things move in the right direction, obviously you made the right decision. If you see things are not moving in the right direction, then you need to adjust and you need to pivot. And being able to pivot on the fly, especially in real estate, with as fluid as things are, is an extremely important quality that any business owner needs to have in the real estate space. It's one of the biggest things, it's one of the things that sets us apart as a firm as a whole, because coming out of the pandemic, we pivoted from only multifamily over to our affordable housing. While everyone else was sitting there twiddling their fucking thumbs going, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do business-wise because you can't buy anything right now, and whatever it was, right? So us being able to pivot to that asset class allowed us to keep growing while everyone else just sat there and wait. I'm not one to wait around. So the KPIs itself is what allows us to really track how effective changes are. And some changes work, some changes don't. And you have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what did we do wrong? Why weren't they working? What do we have to do now to make sure that we're moving on the right track? So our KPIs tell us everything. Our KPIs are gonna tell us what direction, if the direction we're moving in is right, if it's wrong, or if it's working, if the changes are working, or if they're not working. And that's why it's so important to be tracking your key performance indicators, is because they're gonna tell you everything. It's a numbers game.
Like they'll pay close attention to those numbers.
Every day, yep, every day. We're looking at those numbers and seeing, if the changes that we implemented are moving in the right direction. I'm gonna get my coffee. Bye.